Thank you once again for having joined us at Historic Investments. Today, as you may have gleaned from the title, we're going to focus on the Singer 1911A1, this example having been generously provided by Morphy Auctions. For those of you who are a student of history, you know that in April of 1940, the Singer Manufacturing Company got what's known as an educational contract to make 500 pistols, all of which were completed by December of 1941. They were then shipped to Springfield Armory for distribution to the military, most of those ending up with the Army Air Corps. Afterwards, as a result of different obligations, Singer sold most of its equipment, if not all of its equipment, to Remington Rand, much of that later ending up with Ithaca. As a result, if you're a collector, there are only 500 guns to choose from. Prices have gone up, the selection is difficult, sometimes the hand-on experience is almost impossible to obtain. So, what kind of fine points should you be looking for before adding a Singer to your collection? Is it a real gun? Is it a refurbished gun? Or is it an out-and-out fake? Let's take a look at some of the fine points and jump right in. Not only is the Singer 1911A1 the scarcest of all of the World War II manufacturers of this model, but it also has the best quality fit and finish. After the commercial level polish, the guns were dipped in a Duelite salt blue. And when you look at the guns now as a result of the hardening function, there always seems to be a little bit of a dual tone between the front of the slide and its rear portion. Also, it has a distinctive color. So if you look at the gun in very bright light and tilt it very slowly, and this is a test often best carried out in sunlight, you'll see some brown tones, which is why when you go to gun shows and auction houses, you'll see some collectors with a very bright flashlight. They're looking for the brown tones. The next thing you should pay really careful attention to are the markings on the left side of the slide and the left side of the frame. The slide address was roll marked, so if the letters look like they've been hand engraved, there's a problem. Also, pay careful attention to the periods and commas. There should be a period after each of the letters or group of letterings on the top line and a series of commas and periods on the second line. Fakers have been known to miss some of the periods or commas. There should be a stamped P, proof mark just above the magazine release button, and after the gun was finished, you should see the welled up letters JKC that correspond to Colonel John K. Clement, then Chief Inspector of the New York Ordnance section that was responsible for overseeing Singer production. The next thing you should do is to look very carefully at the P that was struck on the top of the slide just in front of the rear sight. Compared to other 1911 A1s, it seems to have been struck upside down, and it was also struck after the gun was blued. So if you look very carefully, the metal around the P should be slightly welled up, and in some areas around the segment, the strike should have broken through the blue to expose bare metal. Singer made its own barrels that were installed fully blued. So take a look at the barrel hood as evident through the ejection port. If it's fully blued, great. That's the way it should be. If it's pretty worn, well, the gun better be pretty worn. If it's polished and in the white, that's not quite correct. Maybe it's a Singer barrel that's been polished, and we'll get to the proof marks later, or maybe more likely, it's a replacement barrel. Either way, a cause for concern that needs further exploration. Now let's turn our attention to the markings on the right side of the frame that were applied with a roll stamp. All markings should be perfectly flat as they were applied before the gun was polished, then blued. There should be no raised edges, as would be present if the letters or markings were stamped later. There should be no soft edges, as would be present if the gun was buffed, and there should be no irregularities to suggest either the letters or the numbers were chased. And above all, the pistol needs to be in the right serial range. All the military pistols were in a range with a capital S prefix that goes from 800,001 through 800,500. If the gun is not in that range, it's not a military pistol. Yes, there were a few Singers that did not have any markings on the right side of the frame. Those were purportedly used either as gifts or presentations, but that's really outside the scope of this discussion. At this point, let's disassemble the gun and look at two components. The first is the barrel. As mentioned, Singer made the barrel, which should be fully blued. The only marking on the barrel is the P, which is on the left side of the barrel lug. And let me see if I can bring this up closer so you can see. There you go. It's also worth mentioning that as part of the finishing process, the ramp was polished. So that's what you want to note about this barrel. Fully blued. The only marking is a P on the left side of the lug, and it's got a polished throat. Let me now make a few comments about the small parts. The short mill trigger should have a checkered face. The slide stop should be checkered. The safety should be checkered. The short, wide spur hammer should have borderless checkering. Fine checkering extends across the curved mainspring housing. A comment about the magazine. Yes, Singer made its own magazines. Same high polished blue as the balance of the pistol and totally unmarked. Unfortunately, the magazine in this pistol is a replacement. The grips were the only parts of the Singer 1911A1 that were not made in-house. Instead, they were made by the Keys Fiber Company of New York and have two characteristics. The first can be seen externally. Notice that the checkering runs right up to the head of the grip screws. Unlike some of the later production guns, there were no surrounding reinforcing rings or donuts. The second characteristic can be noted once the grips have been removed. All Singers were originally fitted with these kind of grips, with just a single central non-reinforced cavity. There are no mold markings, there are no serial numbers. Sometimes if somebody wants to fake the grips, they will remove the reinforcements, specifically look at the areas in the upper and lower parts of the cavity to make sure that they haven't been fooled with. This is exactly what the grip should look like. Well, there you have it. One completely disassembled, thoroughly described, and vetted Singer 1911A1 pistol. Hopefully, we've been able to answer most, if not all, of your questions concerning the Singer 1911A1. If you like what you saw, please be sure to punch the like button. Otherwise, we look forward to seeing you again in the near future. Good luck and good collecting.